All right, I have a quick question. I want you to think about the best leader you've ever worked for. Why do you think they're the best leader? Is it because you remember the decisions they made, or is it because of how they made you feel? If you think it's because of how they made you feel, then you already have a sense of what we're going to talk about today. See you in the episode. Welcome to We've All Done It, the podcast for leaders who know they've screwed up and are ready to fix it fast. I'm Kimberly Benoit, author, speaker, leadership coach, and Southern girl living outside of Washington, D.C. Here's what I believe. Every leader faces challenges and makes mistakes, but you don't need years of therapy-style coaching to fix them. You need someone to help you figure out what's actually going wrong, make smart adjustments, and get back on track quickly. That's exactly what I do through one-on-one coaching, targeted skill development, and group programs. Every episode of this podcast delivers real talk about common leadership pitfalls, practical strategies for recovery, and no BS guidance to improve how you lead yourself and others every single day. Whether you're here to listen and learn, or ready to work together and make real changes, you are in the right place. Now let's get to today's episode. Welcome back, everybody. This is Kimberly Benoit. How are you doing today? I am glad you are here because I want to talk about something that I truly believe gets overlooked way too often when we are having leadership conversations. We spend a lot of time talking about how to get things right, the right strategy, the right hire, making the right calls. But here's what nobody really talks about enough, especially early on in your career. It's being right is actually the easy part. The hard part is how you actually bring it to life. And that's what we're going to spend today talking about. It's not the what of leadership, it's the how. So I encourage you to have a drink of some kind, settle in, because we're really going to get into the how of being a good leader. So I want to start by painting a picture for you. I want you to imagine two leaders. Both of them need to tell their team about a project that's being, restructured or realigned, right? So timelines are shifting, some roles are changing, and it's going to mean a lot of more work in the short term, right? We all know this is not an easy message to deliver. We probably hate it too. So let's think about leader A calls a quick team meeting, announces the changes, sticks to a slide deck, and then takes a couple of questions and moves on, right? It's done. It's efficient. Check the box. The communication was done, right? They know what's coming. They know what to expect. Boom, out. Now, but think about maybe a different approach. What about leader B? They sit down with their team. They acknowledge that this is a lot to take in, explains the reason behind the decision, is honest about what is still uncertain, and makes it clear that together they're going to navigate, right? So technically it's the same message, but a very different experience. Now here's the thing. Both leaders did the same what, right? The restructuring is happening either way, but only one of them probably walked out of there with a team still feeling confident, trusted, and that their leader has their back. That is the power of the how. It shows up everywhere. And I want to be clear, not in just big moments. It is in everyday moments just like this that make the difference in how people view you as a leader and how impactful you can be as a leader. So here's something I've noticed over the years, and why I think this topic is so really important to talk about, is when we talk about leadership, we tend to focus on big decisions, the big pivots, the hard calls, the moments of crisis. And we've all had a lot of these hard calls and moments of crisis over the last, 5-6 years. But I'm going to be honest with you. The how is built or can be broken in the small moments, the ones that don't feel significant at the time. It's how you respond when someone brings you a problem you didn't see coming. For instance, do you get frustrated or do you stay really curious and stay open? It's in how you run your weekly meetings. Are people engaged or are they just waiting for it to be over because they drone on too long and Nobody knows the point of them anymore. Is it how you give credit or recognition? For instance, do you shine the spotlight on your team, or does recognition always somehow come back to you? Is it maybe how you handled a mistake, whether it's yours or someone else's? Do you create a safe space so that you can learn how to be better, or does everyone quietly just steer clear and just learn to be more careful next time and stay out of everyone's way? None of these moments might feel like a leadership defining moment, especially when you think about how often each of these can happen in a single day. But over time, they add up and they become your reputation. They become the culture on your team. They become what people say about you when you are not in the room. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a decision that was probably the right call, but was handled so poorly you found yourself resentful and frustrated and angry? I don't know about you, but I surely have. And it's really interesting to sit with, because logically, you might know that the decisions being made around you make sense. They're the right ones. But for some reason, emotionally, it feels wrong. And that feeling didn't come from the decision itself. This is a true sign. It came from how the decision was actually communicated. And this happens so much more than we all realize. A perfectly sound decision. It could be a reorg, a budget cut, a complete change in strategy. But it lands badly, not because it's the wrong decision, but because of how it was communicated. Or sometimes not communicated. Or maybe worse, it was communicated once, but it wasn't followed up on, and we didn't really know, nobody really knows what was said. So I wanted to take a second just to talk about a few patterns that I have seen come up over and over again, both throughout my career and those that I work with, and see if you notice yourself in any of these. So the first pattern I notice is speed, right? We as leaders are expected to move fast. The world around us is moving incredibly fast. And candidly, leaders, if you're in the leadership space, moving quickly is often seen as a solid strength. But I would challenge, when you move too fast, your team around you may feel like they're being dragged along rather than led by you. And when that happens, that means you have lost the how. Remember, we're not robots, right? People need a minute to process, and we need to give them that when we lead. So yes, we need to encourage speed and execution and all of those things, but we also need to respect that just because we have already accepted something in our minds doesn't mean our teams are theirs and may not have a few more questions for us than we had for ourselves. The second pattern that I often see is completely just missing the why. So when you're out there, and it happens when you see a decision without context, right? Like you don't know, it feels very arbitrary and weird. So even if you can't share everything, and as leaders, often we can't share everything about why we're making the decisions that we're making, or why maybe decisions above us were made, sharing something about the reason behind the decision will often change how people receive it. And why is that? It's because it signals respect. It signals that I respect you enough to explain how I got here. Small shift, big impact. Third pattern I've noticed is the one and done approach. And I'm going to say I saw this a lot during COVID. And again, it probably goes back to the whole speed factor in the first pattern, which was you announce something, you check it off the list, and you're moving on because you have so many other things to do on your checklist. But here's the truth. It doesn't just end at which you've announced it, right? It continues long in how you show up in the days and week after. Are you available? Are you checking in with them with what you communicated? Are you following through with your part of the communication? Are you asking for questions and clarifications? Like, it's not, communicating is rarely a one and done. We have to check back in. And then the last one, and I've talked about this numerous times if you've been around on the podcast, the last one is the gap between what you say you do and what you do, right? So you can have the most thoughtful communication plan in the world, but if your actions don't match your words, people will notice. And once they notice, it's going to be really hard to regain that confidence and to regain that that belief that when you're standing up there and saying something, that it's something that they can believe in and that they can trust. So now I've told you the patterns that show up for every single one. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't fall prey to these on occasion. And it's because, again, we're human, and we have to constantly remind ourselves on how to do it better. So what does great look like, right? Because I don't want this just to be a conversation of, hey, don't do this. Like, maybe there's some things that we can do to flip this around and to put better practices to get us on the right? So the first thing I would say is to start before the decision's even made. So it's bringing people into the process where you can. And I'm not saying that every decision or everything that's going on needs to be a group discussion or a group project, but there's a big difference between saying, here's what's been decided, end of story, versus here's what I was thinking about, here's the input I gathered, here's where I landed. One of those approaches builds absolute buy-in. The other one just basically is a directive. And again, thinking about it, if you were in your team's position, where would you want your leader to be, right? And I know which one I would choose. All right, the second thing I would encourage you to think about and to get proactive on is emotional honesty. And I know this is one that can be very difficult for leaders, particularly in our current environment, right? So there's so much pressure around being polished and showing up in a professional way and not oversharing and being careful what you do share. But we have to remember, at the core, people are emotional human beings. And they're going to be walking into your meetings with their own anxieties, their own pressures, and their own questions. So there is power in acknowledging that reality, even briefly, because it makes a difference. Something as simple as, I know this is a lot of change coming at you, and I want to make sure we have time to talk through it. That alone signals that you see them as real people that have real concerns and questions, and not just subordinates who just sit and take whatever direction you do. The third thing I would encourage you to be more proactive on considering is, and make sure you're doing it, is the consistency part, right? How and this approach, this mindset, because it really is a mindset shift, isn't about a one-time performance. It's really about creating patterns. And people are always watching patterns, whether you are aware of it or not. And I used to joke and say I felt like teams were a lot like kids and animals. Like, they know when you are just blowing smoke up their posteriors, right? They know when you are not being truthful. And so don't, right? Do the right things, show up in the right way. And I guarantee you, the leaders who get this right are the ones who bring the same level of respect and care to big moments as they do the small ones, right? So it's about being consistent in how you, as best as you can, in how you show up. And then lastly is, again, the follow-up part. It sounds so simple, but we all know it is hard. Our plates are overflowing with things to do. But I will tell you right now, if you have promised your team that you would get back to them with more information, or you've made a commitment, or whatever you've promised, you gotta follow up. The follow-up is part of the how, abso-freaking-lutely. And it either reinforces your credibility, or if you get it wrong, it will quietly and quickly erode. Okay, so here's what I want to leave you with today, because I really want to make sure we're all living in a position of action, right? Even if it's the smallest of action. So I want to challenge you to pick one interaction this week. It could be a conversation, a meeting, a decision, just something you need to communicate. And before you go into it, please pause and ask yourself, am I thinking as much about the how as I am about the what? Not instead, but in addition to, right? So am I thinking about as much about how I'm executing this action, how I'm executing this communication? How am I delivering this as much as the what? Because here's the truth. Your team is going to survive and, move on from most of the decisions you make. They're going to adapt, they'll adjust, they'll figure it out, right? But you know this, if you're really honest with yourself, the things that your team will carry with them going forward is always how you made them feel, especially in hard or difficult moments. I know that is true for me in how I think about leaders from my past. I know instantly the leaders that I continue to respect and value and look up to. And in great part, it is because of how they handled themselves in the how, not the what. All right. So that is today's episode. If this has really resonated with you, I would love to hear about it. Sometimes I get emails and it absolutely makes my day. So please reach out. Feel free to share this with someone on your team or someone you think really needs to hear it. Because candidly, I know this is really focused towards leadership, but this absolutely can apply to your life as well, your outside of work life, in how you move through that space. And if you should so find it, leave a review if you're feeling generous and have the time and inclination. And I just want to say, if you're working through something right now where you're not sure how to get it right, that's what I'm here for. Like, there's links, there's stuff, reach out to me. I'm here to help support you. You're not in this on your own. So know that you have support via me in the podcast world, but also in the real world. So don't sit and spend. Reach out, ask for the help you need. All right, everyone, until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of those lovely people that you have the privilege of leading. Talk soon. I've got 2 things before I let you go. 1, if you've ever gotten any value from the show, please leave a 5-star review. It really helps and absolutely makes my day. The second thing is, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with me, please shoot me an email at podcast@KimberlyJBenoit.com. I'd love to hear from you. All right, see you in the next episode.